Well, look who showed up. You did. Welcome to my chaotic corner of the internet. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button like it's the snooze on Monday morning and share this video with someone who deserves it, or someone who doesn't. I don't judge. Tell me where you're watching from. I'm building an international fan map and I need your dot. Let's roll. If anyone had warned me that a text message and a cash scheme would be the wrecking ball to my marriage, I'd have spent less time sorting soda cans and more time preparing for a full-blown war. But clarity only shows up in the rearview mirror. Back then, I was simply Harry Ellis, 39 years old, managing operations at the Coca-Cola bottling plant in the heart of our state's capital, believing my biggest challenges were whether Tyler would survive algebra or if Jenny's overbite needed professional attention. The day everything started to collapse looked like any other Tuesday on the surface. Amanda was already at the kitchen island, her phone glued to her ear, whispering with Michelle, again. These little retreats had become a regular fixture over the past 6 months, ever since Michelle's dramatic breakup with her finance ex from Wall Street. No, Jake's handling the hotel in Miami, Amanda murmured, still turned away as I poured coffee into my thermos. It's a penthouse with an ocean view, and he knows the right people at all the best places. Jake. That name had started surfacing far too often for comfort. Jake Sanderson, the local celebrity entrepreneur behind some glossy, ambiguous wellness empire that seemed more about velvet ropes and champagne flutes than anything health-related. He was the type who bought rounds for strangers and changed his life story depending on the room. "Morning, beautiful," I said, kissing her on the cheek. She stiffened slightly and lowered her phone in haste. "Hey," she replied casually. "Michelle and I were just planning another girls' weekend. You know how much I need those breaks." Breaks from what, exactly? I wondered. From our pleasant life in the suburbs? From the 2 kids who thought the world of her? From the endless hours I clocked so she could rediscover herself in her late 30s? "Dad, can you help with my science project?" Jenny pulled at my sleeve, her eyes wide with 9-year-old excitement. "I want to make one of those volcanoes that really explodes." "Absolutely, kiddo," I told her. "We'll hit the hardware store Saturday." I tousled her hair gently, while Amanda didn't even glance up from her phone. Tyler drifted in next, looking like most teenage boys do at 7 a.m., tired, annoyed, and already over it. "Mom, I need lunch money. And can you sign my field trip form?" Without even looking up from her screen, Amanda waved him off. "Ask your dad." "I'm in the middle of something." The boy shot me a glance, quick, sharp, and far too knowing for a 14-year-old. "Come on, Dad. Let's just get it over with." I signed the form and passed him a 20, catching his eyes flick back toward Amanda with the same guarded unease I'd started to feel myself. Kids notice more than we think. Once they left for school and Amanda retreated upstairs for what she claimed was yoga, though I'd seen more FaceTime than downward dogs, I stayed behind in my home office, staring at the safe tucked in the corner. That safe was a wedding gift from Amanda's parents, the Baileys. It came with a stiff lecture on financial prudence, which really meant they didn't trust their daughter's blue-collar husband with her money. Inside was our emergency fund, important documents, and one very deliberate addition I'd made several months ago, not long after Amanda's behavior had started to shift. See, I've always been cautious with money. When you grow up with none, that instinct never really leaves. So when Amanda began withdrawing strange amounts of cash and holding whispered conversations with Jake about financial ventures, I decided it was time for a contingency plan. I replaced half of the emergency cash with expertly crafted counterfeit bills, perfect replicas. Not because I wanted to use them, I wasn't trying to land in prison, but I had a gut feeling Amanda might do something reckless, and I needed leverage. They were indistinguishable to the eye, but put them through a proper banking scanner and alarms would blare. It was a trap, sure, but one she'd have to step into on her own. My phone buzzed with a message from Phil, my boss at the bottling plant. Meetings moved to 2 p.m. Wear the good tie. Despite everything, I chuckled. Phil was Coca-Cola loyalty personified. He'd started loading trucks and had worked his way to regional director after 30 years of hustle. He also knew I owned exactly 2 ties. The good one just meant the one that didn't have a ketchup stain from the company picnic. The plant had always been my retreat. The hum of conveyor belts, the sharp hiss as carbonation hit syrup, the scent of sugar dissolving into purified water. It was honest, tangible work. The kind that resulted in something people actually wanted in their hands. Not like Jake's vague wellness hustle or Amanda's sudden flair for consulting. "You've got the look of a guy who just had his Coke spat in," Phil said when I walked into his office. "Everything all right at home?" Phil was one of the few who knew the quiet disdain Amanda's family held for my profession. Every holiday gathering was a subtle reminder that, in their world, she had settled beneath her station. "Same old happy household," I replied with a half smile. "What's the meeting about?" "Cost reductions," he said with a sigh. "They're talking about trimming the fat, maybe consolidating some roles." His face, creased and seasoned by decades in the industry, tightened with concern. "You're safe. Best manager we've had in ages. But still, keep your ears open." The meeting that followed was pure corporate theater, executives from Atlanta, droning on about efficiency metrics and shareholder value. I endured 2 hours of sterile slideshows, while Amanda's texts buzzed on my phone, one after the other. "Need to talk when you're home. Urgent. Where are you?" By the time I pulled into the driveway at 6:30, her BMW was already gone. Tyler was dribbling a basketball in the driveway with a little too much force. Jenny sat on the porch, tucked into a fantasy novel. "Where's your mom?" I asked. Tyler slammed the ball off the garage door with a loud thud. "She left about an hour ago. Took 2 suitcases, kept checking her phone. Said she'd call us later." Jenny looked up from her book, something with dragons and magical kingdoms, her eyes glassy. But it wasn't sadness I saw there. It was the tears that come when a child senses the ground shifting. Kids always pick up on more than we think. Inside, the safe was open, its door wide as a scream. The cash was gone. Amanda's passport, her jewelry, everything valuable had vanished. What remained were the essentials: the deed, insurance forms, birth records. Either she'd left in a hurry, or she hadn't planned on disappearing completely. That's when my phone buzzed again, with a message that felt like a fist to the gut and a slap to the face all at once. "Took what I needed from the safe. Jake and I are starting fresh. Don't try to find us. This is what's best. Amanda." I stared at the words for a long beat, then typed a single reply. "Enjoy the money." What I didn't say? She hadn't stolen a dime of real cash, just $30,000 worth of top-tier counterfeit bills. Jake Sanderson, yoga guru, mindfulness preacher, and full-time fraud, was about to discover the price of trusting the wrong person. Upstairs, I opened her side of the closet. Half the clothes were missing. Her designer handbags were gone too. The diamond earrings her mother gave her for our 10th anniversary? Taken. But she had left behind one thing: her wedding band. It sat on the bathroom sink like a silent indictment. "Dad?" Tyler stood in the doorway, Jenny hovering close. "Is Mom coming back?" I looked at them both. Tyler trying to stay tough, Jenny holding her book like it could block out the truth. Something cold and unrelenting took root inside me. Not just anger, but clarity. "I don't know, kiddo," I said quietly. "But no matter what happens, we'll be okay." Tyler gave a small nod, but the worry in his eyes lingered. Jenny wrapped her arms around my leg. "Can we get pizza?" she asked, her voice a soft murmur. "Absolutely," I said. "Extra cheese, pepperoni, and those spicy peppers you love." As I made the call, my mind was already spinning. Amanda thought she'd outmaneuvered me, off with her new lover and a bag full of what she believed was our future. She had no idea what she'd actually taken, or what was about to catch up with her. That illusion wouldn't last long. The next morning brought 2 things: the dull throb of a bourbon hangover and a phone call that would change everything. "Harry, oh God, Harry, you don't even know what's happening." Michelle's voice shook through the line, slurred and desperate. "I'm sorry, I never thought it would go this far." I stood in the kitchen pouring coffee in a house that suddenly felt more like an abandoned shell than a home. The kids were already at school. Michelle's words crackled with panic and dread. And just like that, the unraveling began. What are you even saying, Michelle? It's the money, Harry. Amanda and Jake completely lost control last night. They went on a casino spree. 3 different spots. Jake was handing out $100 bills like business cards. And Amanda? She couldn't stop laughing, going on about how she'd finally broken free from her boring, trapped life. My fingers clenched around the phone, knuckles tight. How much did they blow through? Everything, Harry. Every dollar. But that's not even the worst part. Her voice dropped, trembling now. Jake has connections, not the legal kind. They were talking about turning Amanda's trust fund into startup capital for a shady gambling operation. Something about pushing dirty cash through his wellness centers to make it look clean. I almost laughed at the madness of it. Where are they now? At the penthouse, Jake's place downtown. Harry, I think they're in real trouble. Some suits came into the casino around midnight, asking questions about the bills Amanda had been flashing. They weren't security, looked more like government agents, federal agents, which meant my counterfeit stash had landed right where I needed it to. Michelle, listen carefully, I said, keeping my tone low and steady. You need to distance yourself. No more calls, no visits. Don't go near that apartment. And if anyone starts asking questions about their money, you don't know a thing. Understand? But Harry, no arguments. Just do what I'm telling you. I hung up and immediately called David Chen, my lawyer. Smart, fast, discreet. He'd written my will and sorted out a few disputes over vendor contracts at the plant. David, quick legal scenario for you, totally hypothetical. What if someone took money from me and that money turned out to be counterfeit? What kind of legal mess would they be looking at? There was a brief silence. Harry, tell me this is actually hypothetical. Think of it as theoretical risk assessment. Well, theoretically? Distributing fake currency is a serious federal crime. The Secret Service usually handles those cases. If the person didn't know the cash was bogus, they might catch a break. But if there's proof they were aware, or if it ties into any other illegal activity, he exhaled sharply. They're staring down some serious federal prison time. And what about the original holder of the fake cash? If they can show the money was stolen, and that they had no clue it wasn't real, they're probably safe. But Harry, his tone darkened. If you're in possession of any counterfeit bills, turn them over. Immediately. Of course, I said calmly. And for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely calm. Amanda had drained our accounts, walked away from our children, and run off with a professional liar. Now, consequences were finally catching up. My phone buzzed. Amanda. Harry, we need to talk. Her voice was tense, nervous. Do we? Your message yesterday made things pretty clear. There's been a situation with the money. Some of it might be problematic. Problematic how? Please, just meet me somewhere neutral. Let me explain everything. For a brief second, I almost agreed. Almost fell into that old role, cleaning her messes, shielding her from fallout. But then I thought about the way Tyler had looked at me the night before, about how Jenny clung to my leg like she didn't want to let go. No, Amanda. You made this mess. You deal with it. Harry, I'm serious. Jake says if we don't figure this out, we're both facing prison. Then I hope Jake's half as smart as he pretends to be. I ended the call and powered down my phone. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The usual routine kept me grounded. School pickup, math worksheets, dinner prep, ordinary things. That evening, after I tucked Jenny into bed, Tyler appeared in the hallway. Dad? There's a black car out front, 2 guys just sitting in it. I pulled aside the curtain in Jenny's room and spotted them. 2 men in dark suits, sitting motionless in an unmarked sedan, just as Michelle had described. Stay in here with your sister, I told him, and don't open the door for anyone but me. The doorbell rang just as I stepped into the hallway. I paused, checked my reflection in the mirror, and then opened the door. Mr. Ellis? One of them said, flashing a badge. I'm Agent Rodriguez. This is Agent Martinez. We're with the United States Secret Service. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding some currency used around town last night. I welcomed them in with practiced ease, offered them coffee, and did my best to look like a concerned spouse, which in truth wasn't an act. Agent Rodriguez settled onto the couch like it was his own living room. We have evidence your wife's been withdrawing substantial amounts from your joint accounts, he said calmly. He glanced down at his notepad. Can you tell us about the cash you kept in the home safe? That was our emergency reserve, I answered. About $30,000, a mix of bills. It was there for peace of mind. Hurricanes, bank collapses, whatever came our way. When did you last see that money? Yesterday morning. I checked before heading to work. By the time I got home, the safe had been emptied, and Amanda was gone. Agent Martinez leaned forward, his tone more direct. Mr. Ellis, some of the bills your wife used last night were counterfeit. Expert forgeries, but counterfeit nonetheless. I let my face go slack, stunned at first, then confused and finally irritated. Are you saying my wife stole fake money from our own safe? How is that even possible? That's what we're trying to understand. Do you have any idea where those bills could have come from? I paused, projecting the image of a man blindsided. Amanda's always handled most of the finances. Her family's well off. Her parents are always slipping her cash here and there, early inheritances and such. I figured it was all legitimate. The two agents shared a glance. We'll need to speak with your wife. I gave a dry, humorless laugh. Good luck with that. She's shacked up in a swanky downtown suite with her new boyfriend, burning through what's left of our accounts and tanking my credit rating while she's at it. I didn't bother softening my tone. If she's mixed up in anything criminal, that's on her. My only concern now is making sure my kids are safe. They asked a few more follow-up questions, scribbled some notes, then thanked me and left. From the front window, I watched their car pull away, most likely en route to Jake's penthouse. Not long after, Tyler came downstairs. Were those cops? He asked. Federal? Yeah, I replied, meeting his eyes. He was perceptive, more grown up than I wanted to admit, and smart enough to know that things were falling apart. Is Mom in trouble? Is she coming back? I took a breath. I don't think so, buddy. And honestly, maybe that's for the best. He nodded slowly, as if trying to wrap his head around it all. Then he added, Dad, last week I overheard Mom on the phone. She was talking to someone about making it look like you were stealing money at work. Said something about getting a better divorce deal. Ice spread through my chest. Can you tell me exactly what you heard? She said her lawyer told her if she could prove you were embezzling, she'd have a stronger case for custody. So Amanda hadn't just disappeared with our cash and Jake. She'd been trying to destroy my livelihood, my name, everything I'd built. But those counterfeit bills she ran off with? They might have just turned out to be my saving grace. I pulled Tyler into a tight hug. Thank you for telling me. That was really brave of you. Are we going to be all right, Dad? I thought about Amanda and Jake, probably lounging in that expensive suite, unaware that federal agents were closing in. I imagined Amanda's reaction when she realized the money she'd stolen was fake. I pictured her parents scrambling to salvage the mess. Yeah, I said softly. We're going to be okay. 3 mornings later, the phone rang at 6 on the dot. Amanda's voice cracked through the line. Harry, please. I'm in county jail. Jake turned himself in. I need bail. I was already up, sipping coffee and skimming the local news. There it was, buried on page 3. Wellness CEO arrested in counterfeit ring sting. Jake's so-called business had been a front all along, a pipeline for laundering fake currency, and Amanda's shopping spree had brought the whole operation crashing down. How much are we talking? I asked, knowing full well I wouldn't give her a dime. 50,000. My parents won't even pick up. My lawyer says if I can't post bond, I could be stuck here for months. You should have thought about that before you emptied our emergency fund. Harry, I messed up, badly, but I'm still the mother of your children. Wrong card to play. Oh, really? Because when Tyler needed help building his science fair display, where were you? And when Jenny wanted someone to read her a bedtime story, who showed up? So this was your brilliant strategy, vanishing with your felon boyfriend? None of this was part of the plan. Not her plan, not mine. Jake had sworn everything was under control. Jake's a fraud, Amanda. A junkie and a con man. Half the town knows it. Everyone except you. I could hear her breaking down on the other end. For a split second, I almost felt sympathy. Almost. They need their mother, she choked out, her voice barely holding together. No, I said firmly. What they need is stability. A parent who puts them first, not someone who chases chaos for the thrill of it. I just want to see them, she pleaded. Then talk to your lawyer about visitation. If you're lucky enough to qualify, I ended the call and immediately contacted David Chen. I need to request emergency custody, I told him, and I want to start the divorce proceedings. Today. Slow down, Harry. What happened? I filled him in. Amanda's arrest, the federal involvement, the phone call she'd just made. David let out a long, low whistle. Well, that changes the game. With federal charges involved, getting custody should be simple. But are you sure you want to push this quickly? She drained our savings, abandoned our children, and got involved in federal crimes. How slow do you think I should be moving, David? He didn't argue. I'll have everything ready this afternoon. The next several weeks moved like a storm. Legal meetings, paperwork, court appearances. All while I tried to keep things steady at home for the kids. Eventually, Amanda was released on bail. Her parents had to remortgage their house to make it happen, but by then, the damage was irreversible. The custody hearing felt like a formality more than a battle. Amanda entered the courtroom looking defeated. Her designer clothes hung wrinkled and loose, and her hair was a disheveled mess. Her attorney, a tired-looking public defender, mumbled something about mental instability and the irreplaceable love between mother and child. Judge Patricia Williams wasn't swayed. Mrs. Ellis, she began, her tone crisp, you made the conscious decision to abandon your children and follow a man currently facing multiple felony charges, including counterfeiting and money laundering. You emptied your family's emergency reserves and spent it on gambling and alcohol. So tell me, why should I allow you unrestricted access to these children? Amanda's voice was thin, almost inaudible. I made terrible choices, but I love my kids. I really do. Love isn't enough, the judge said sharply. Children need more than sentiment. They need consistency, safety, and responsible parenting. She paused, then looked at Amanda over her glasses. I'm granting Mr. Ellis full temporary custody. You may see your children under supervision only, and that's contingent upon the outcome of your criminal case. Amanda collapsed into her chair, sobbing without restraint. Her parents sat in the back row, visibly shattered, both of them looking like they'd aged 10 years in a month. After the session ended, Amanda's mother came storming out, fury written all over her face. This is your fault, Patricia Bailey snapped. If you'd been a better husband, provided more, Amanda wouldn't have gone looking for something else. I stared at the same woman who'd spent the last 15 years reminding me I wasn't good enough for her daughter. Your daughter stole $30,000 and ran off with a pill-addicted criminal, I replied calmly. And you still think this is on me? She was miserable. You couldn't give her what she needed. What she needed was to grow up and take responsibility for her life. But instead, you and your husband raised her to believe that the rules don't apply, that she's owed everything without effort. Patricia's face turned a dark, furious red. You arrogant? No, I cut her off. Just honest. Amanda's in this position because she thought she could manipulate and steal and lie without facing any consequences. That's not my doing. That's yours. I walked away, leaving her speechless at the top of the courthouse steps. Tyler was waiting in the car. He'd insisted on coming with me to the hearing. How'd it go, Dad? We won, I said gently. You and Jenny are staying with me. He gave a small nod, trying to look composed. But I saw the relief in his face. Is Mom going to prison? He asked, his voice small. Maybe, I told him. Probably. Good, he muttered. Then he paused. Is that a horrible thing to say? I reached over and pulled him into a hug. Tyler, your mom made choices that hurt a lot of people. Feeling upset, or even angry, isn't wrong. It means you're human. It was only natural to feel anger after everything that had happened. Wanting her to face the repercussions didn't make me cruel. It made me human. What I truly longed for was a return to stability. It wouldn't look like the past, and I accepted that. But it could still be solid, familiar, real. That evening, with Jenny already tucked into bed and Tyler buried in his homework, I sat alone in my study. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you reflect. I cracked open a beer and looked down at the thick folder resting on my desk, full of divorce forms, custody agreements, and financial records. Amanda had thrown away our life together for some glittering illusion, and now she was left with nothing but consequences. My phone lit up with a message from Michelle. Heard about the custody ruling. I'm sorry it turned out this way. Amanda's staying with me until her trial. She's not doing well. I tapped out a short reply. That's no longer my responsibility. Still, as I hit send, something inside me shifted, something deep and low. It wasn't quite guilt, but it lingered like a bruise, a quiet grief for the wreckage left behind. There was a time when Amanda and I felt like a team, or at least I'd believed we were. We built a home. We raised 2 incredible kids. We dreamed forward together. Now, she was staring down serious federal time. Her parents had gone so far as to refinance their home just to afford her defense. Meanwhile, our children, bright, thoughtful, and far too perceptive, were left to wonder why their mother had chosen everything else over them. The counterfeit money plot had unraveled perfectly. Amanda hadn't just stolen forged cash, she'd stolen her own future. My computer pinged with an incoming email. It was from Phil. Board meeting tomorrow. Got some good news to share. I closed the folder of legal papers and opened my laptop, already turning my attention to what lay ahead. Whatever the road looked like, I knew one thing for sure. Tyler, Jenny, and I would walk it together. Amanda had made her bed, and now she'd have to sleep in it. The next morning, the board meeting unfolded just as Phil had hinted. Not only was I keeping my job, I'd been promoted. I was stepping into Phil's shoes as regional supervisor. He was officially retiring, ready to trade meetings and deadlines for fishing trips and time with his grandkids. Congratulations, Harry, said Janet Morrison, the regional VP. Your plant leads the entire Southeast in performance and employee retention. You earned this. The new position came with a 40% pay raise and a brand new company vehicle. Around the conference table, I shook hands with executives who had never bothered to learn my name before that day. And I couldn't help but catch the irony. On the very day my divorce from Amanda was finalized, a woman who always believed I'd never amount to much, I was receiving the biggest professional recognition of my life. As the meeting wrapped up, Janet had one last question. There's just one more thing, she said. The role involves quite a bit of travel. You'll be managing 6 facilities across 3 states. Will that work, given your family situation? I didn't hesitate. Actually, the timing's perfect. My kids and I could really use a fresh start. That afternoon, I pulled into the driveway in my new company car, a pristine silver Chevy Tahoe that probably cost more than Amanda's luxury BMW. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something warm flicker inside me, something like hope. As I parked, Tyler and Jenny were waiting on the porch. Jenny came bounding down the steps, eyes wide with amazement. "Daddy, is this ours?" she asked, running a hand along the car's sleek frame. "It's mine," I said with a grin. "Work perk. I got promoted today." Tyler gave an approving whistle. "This is way cooler than Mom's car." That evening, we celebrated properly. I took them to the fancy steakhouse downtown, the one Amanda always said was too expensive for just any night. Tyler ordered the biggest steak they had. Jenny chose a shrimp platter with pieces almost too large for her fork. I raised a glass of top-shelf bourbon and smiled. "So what's this new job mean?" Tyler asked, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. "It means a bigger paycheck, more responsibilities, and some travel," I said. "I'll be overseeing plants in Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina." "Are we moving?" Jenny asked, her voice edged with uncertainty. "Eventually," I replied, meeting her eyes. "How do you feel about that?" They glanced at each other, silently checking in. Tyler was the first to speak. "Dad, can I be honest?" he said. "I actually want to move. I'd like to live somewhere new, somewhere where people don't already know what happened with Mom." Jenny nodded slowly. "Kids at school keep asking about her. Why she doesn't show up for events. It's embarrassing." And in that moment I felt something fracture quietly in my chest. At just 9 years old, she was already carrying the emotional baggage of her mother's reckless choices. "I'll make sure we look at every possibility," I assured her softly. "But no matter where this goes, we face it as a team." The following months found a new rhythm. I threw myself into my new role, traveling between locations, optimizing workflows, and earning the trust of my staff. That sense of consistency became a foundation for the kids. Tyler's grades improved rapidly, and Jenny was invited to join the advanced reading track at school. Amanda's trial was set for the autumn. David kept me in the loop, saying the prosecutors were recommending between 3 and 5 years of federal time. Her lawyer, however, was lobbying for a plea deal that might bring it down to 18 months with probation afterward. "She wants to see the kids," David mentioned during one of our routine calls. "Her legal team thinks showing family involvement could improve her standing with the court." "Absolutely not," I said without a second's pause. "She's had half a year of scheduled, supervised visitation and hasn't shown up once. She doesn't suddenly get to play the devoted mother for the sake of optics." "I hear you," David said cautiously. "Just be aware. Completely denying access could be viewed negatively. Judges typically expect some level of co-parenting effort, even in cases like this. Then here's my offer. 1 visit a month, strictly 2 hours, and it has to take place at the courthouse under supervision. A social worker in the room the entire time, and only if she's been clean for at least 30 straight days." David nodded slowly. "That sounds reasonable. I'll begin drafting the motion." Amanda never once turned up. Michelle kept reaching out from time to time, texting me fragments of updates, though I never really encouraged the exchange. From what I gathered, Amanda was drinking again and had ended up back at her parents' place after being kicked out of her apartment. The Baileys' home was under foreclosure. They had mortgaged it heavily to cover Amanda's bail and legal fees. Patricia's once glamorous art gallery had closed after their wealthy friends distanced themselves from the scandal. And Richard Bailey, the same man who used to lecture me about being financially responsible, was now folding towels at a chain furniture store. I should have felt sorry for them, but instead, I felt an icy calm settle in, a quiet confirmation that karma hadn't lost their address. It was Tyler who first spoke the word I hadn't dared to. We were back in the garage, finishing the science project we'd abandoned when Amanda vanished, a volcano made of paper mache and food coloring. As we poured the vinegar over the baking soda and watched it erupt, he looked up at me with eyes far too serious for his age. "Dad," he asked, "are you ever going to make Mom pay for what she did?" I stopped stirring. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean, she ruined everything," he said, his face drawn. "She hurt you. She hurt me and Jenny. She even hurt Grandma and Grandpa Bailey, even if they weren't very nice. And now she just goes to jail, and that's it? Tyler, your mom is being charged with federal crimes. She's lost her kids, her house, her reputation. What else do you think should happen?" He paused, mulling it over. "I don't know. I just think she should feel what we felt. Jail's just sitting around. She should know what it's like to hurt the way we did. Children speak truths adults hesitate to voice." Later that night, after both kids were fast asleep, his words kept echoing in my mind. Amanda would serve time, sure, but in a couple of years, she'd be out. She'd pick up the broken pieces and reframe the whole thing. Maybe even write a memoir about her transformation. Somehow she'd twist the narrative to become the victim of it all. Meanwhile, Tyler was in therapy trying to cope with being abandoned. Jenny still had nightmares where I disappeared just like her mother did. Amanda's actions had wrecked our family, yet the justice system didn't seem to reach deep enough. Maybe Tyler was right. Maybe she needed to truly experience what she'd inflicted on us. I opened my laptop and started researching. By the time the sun was up, I had a framework in mind. It took 3 months to bring it to life, but when it came together, it was surgically precise. The first step was hiring an expert. I brought in Sarah Kim, a former law enforcement officer who now specialized in uncovering white-collar crime. Her task was direct: dig into Jake's operations and trace the full extent of their financial misconduct. What Sarah uncovered went far beyond anything I had anticipated. Jake hadn't simply been funneling dirty money through his so-called wellness businesses. He was at the helm of a full-blown fraud ring, selling bogus investment deals to wealthy seniors. Compared to the rest of it, the counterfeit bills barely registered. But what cut even deeper was Amanda's involvement. She hadn't been fooled into Jake's operation. She was in it from the ground up. Using her connections through the trust fund circle, she actively recruited new targets for the scam. My wife hadn't just deceived me or emptied our accounts. She had been duping her own friends and relatives. This could drastically shift how the court views her, David remarked after reviewing the packet Sarah had assembled. If the prosecution learns she wasn't just dragged into this, but actually helped build it. They'll know, I told him, just not directly from me. Step 2 had a certain symmetry to it. I asked Sarah to compile everything: bank logs, recorded conversations, sworn testimonies from those Jake had swindled, into a thorough anonymous report and submit it to the FBI. Nothing pointed back to us, but the fallout came fast. Amanda's carefully negotiated plea deal collapsed. Instead of facing just a year and a half behind bars, she was now staring at a possible decade or more in federal prison. And still, I wasn't finished. The final phase was personal. 7 days before Amanda's new trial date, I picked up the phone and called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Mrs. Bailey? It's Harry. We need to have a conversation." "I've got nothing to say to you," she barked. Even so, I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. The past months had clearly taken a toll. "This concerns Amanda's defense. I've got something that might be of use." She paused. Eventually, we agreed to meet at a downtown cafe, neutral ground for a tense discussion. When Patricia Bailey arrived, she was almost unrecognizable. The once polished woman looked frayed. Her signature hairstyle showed unkempt roots, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes sunken from lack of sleep. "What is it?" she asked flatly, skipping any small talk. I slid a folder across the table. It held damning documentation, evidence Amanda had been orchestrating this long before her arrest. Secret credit lines, unauthorized money transfers, forged applications. She'd even faked my name on some of the paperwork. Patricia opened the folder and started flipping through the contents. As she read, her face went white. "Where did you get all of this?" she asked tightly. "Does it really matter?" I said. "What matters is that your daughter wasn't misled. She orchestrated this. She planned to clean me out and take the kids. The counterfeiting was just one cog in a much bigger machine." "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, visibly shaken. I leaned back and took a long look at the woman who'd spent over a decade making it clear she thought I was beneath her daughter. "Because you need to see things clearly, Mrs. Bailey. Amanda didn't just betray me, she betrayed you too. The money she took from our safe? Her plan was to run off with Jake and leave you behind to foot the bill for her legal defense." Her hands trembled as she closed the folder. "You're lying," she whispered. "Check the timestamps." The money started shifting right after Jake's first retreat in Miami. She's been playing everyone from the start. I stood to go, but turned back one final time. "Oh, and about that fancy lawyer you hired for her? The one who suddenly stepped away from the case? Jake's the one who referred him. Maybe ask yourself why a career con artist would know a specific criminal defense attorney." Then I left her there, sitting alone, staring at the damning evidence like it spelled out her own downfall. But it was the final chapter that brought true resolution. Amanda's trial became front-page news. The story had everything: high society names, financial crimes, fractured families, and a smooth-talking swindler who'd bilked retirees out of their life savings. I made sure to attend every session, always sitting in the front row with Tyler and Jenny on either side. Amanda looked nothing like the woman I once knew. The chaos, drinking, and courtroom stress had taken their toll. Her face was hollow, her skin sallow, and her hair hung limp and lifeless. But it wasn't her appearance that stayed with me. It was the look in her eyes. That dawning horror. That slow, crushing recognition that she was utterly alone. Her parents had vanished. The high-end lawyer had withdrawn from the case without explanation, leaving her with an overworked public defender. Michelle had escaped to California, hoping distance would shield her from the wreckage. Even Jake had flipped, securing a deal by testifying against Amanda to protect himself. When the jury handed down a unanimous guilty verdict, Amanda buckled. As the bailiff cuffed her wrists and led her away, she cast one last glance in my direction, and in that look, I recognized the exact moment she realized. This wasn't bad luck or a series of missteps. This was deliberate consequence, delivered with precision. Outside the courtroom, a sea of reporters waited. I gave them the quote they were after. "I'm just grateful my children and I can finally start to heal," I told them, with Tyler and Jenny at my side. Amanda made her choices. Now she has to face the outcome. We wish her well, but our focus is on creating a life built on stability and hope. I played the role perfectly. The heartbroken husband determined to shield his kids from their mother's destruction. Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat alone in my study, nursing a bourbon and staring at the newspaper's front page. Amanda had been handed a 12-year sentence in federal prison. Her parents had lost both their house and their social standing. Jake, after crossing too many dangerous people, had been placed in witness protection. A stint in general population would have meant a death sentence for him. My phone lit up. It was Michelle calling from the West Coast. "Harry," she said softly, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I had to reach out." I didn't respond. "What you pulled off, it was brilliant." "I'm not sure I follow," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Oh, please." The anonymous tip that tanked her plea deal? The damning documents that scared off her parents' attorney? You engineered the whole thing? I sipped my drink slowly and stayed quiet. "She earned every bit of it," Michelle went on. "I heard some of the recordings. Amanda was planning to ruin your name, take the kids, and disappear with Jake. You just outplayed her." "She made her bed," I replied evenly. "I simply made sure the truth couldn't be buried." "Well," Michelle said after a pause, "whatever else is true, those kids are lucky to have you." She never deserved them. When the call ended, I made my way upstairs to check on Tyler and Jenny. Tyler was wrapped up in his blanket, flashlight in hand, completely absorbed in a book. Jenny was fast asleep, her arms around a cluster of stuffed animals. They were safe now, free from Amanda's chaos. And whatever measures I'd taken to preserve that peace, they were worth it. The next morning, justice gave one final twist of the knife. I was flipping pancakes when David phoned. "Harry, you won't believe this," he said, almost laughing. "Amanda's filing an appeal. She's claiming Jake manipulated her, that she acted under duress." I chuckled. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. But here's the best part. The prosecution just got their hands on new evidence. Turns out Amanda was the mastermind. Jake was just her puppet. So what happens to the appeal? It's done for. And they're preparing to hit her with more charges. If it goes through, she could be looking at 20 years behind bars. 20 years. Long enough that Tyler would be 34 when she got out. Jenny, nearly 30. They'd be adults with full lives, no longer shaped by her shadow. "And there's more," David added. "The IRS is investigating her parents. Looks like they funneled money to her while dodging estate taxes. If they're caught, it could wipe them out." "Fantastic," I said, then ended the call. When I turned around, Tyler was standing in the doorway in his pajamas. "Was that good news?" he asked. "The best," I told him. "Your mom's appeal was thrown out. We can finally move forward." He smiled, really smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. "So, does that mean we can move to North Carolina like you said?" "We can go anywhere now," I said. "The whole world's open to us." Jenny wandered in a moment later, her hair sticking up in every direction. "Are we having pancakes today?" she mumbled. "We're having anything you want," I said. "Today's a special day." As I stirred the batter and listened to their cheerful back and forth, I felt a quiet peace settle in. After everything we'd been through, this morning felt like the beginning of something new. Amanda had tried to shatter our family in pursuit of some fantasy, but in doing so, she unintentionally gave me everything I'd ever wanted: full custody of our children, a flourishing career, and the quiet triumph of watching justice unfold exactly as it should. The fake money scandal was only the first domino. What followed, the investigations, the trail of incriminating proof, the strategically timed revelations, was all set into motion with care and precision, designed to ensure Amanda would have to face the full consequences of her choices. She'd been chasing excitement, danger, and fast money. Instead, she wound up sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, left with nothing but the cold reality that she'd thrown away everything that mattered for a con artist who abandoned her the moment it suited him. Tyler had put it plainly. She needed to understand just how much harm she had caused. Now she had plenty of time to do that, more than a decade of reflection inside a prison cell. As I stood at the stove flipping pancakes, I couldn't help but smile. My thoughts were already on the new chapter ahead: our move to North Carolina, the kids enrolling in their new schools, and the stable, peaceful life we were finally going to build. A life free from Amanda's chaos, a place where every action had a consequence, and justice arrived with a clean, precise edge, sharp, satisfying, and as refreshing as a cold glass of retribution.